Okay, to all you people out there who are as worried as I am that Trump might get another 4 years, you're probably wondering, what can we do about it? So, the long and short of it is this. Trump is only one man, but there are the down ballot positions as well. And if we get at least 67 Democratic senators in the Senate on January 3rd, 2021, then that might be enough to keep him in check. Because 60 senators are veto-proof. We already have a majority in the House, and the House is not up for election in 2020. And we have 45 Democratic senators right now, 53 Republican senators, 2 vacancies, and we have a total of 21 Republican seats that could be flipped, and the 2 vacancies makes 23 additional Democrats that we can put in the House, or not in the House, in the Senate in this November, bringing our total number of Democratic senators to 68. So that's the short version of it. For those of you that have a short attention span, to simply vote blue no matter who, but not so much in terms of the presidency, but rather in terms of the Senate and other down ballot positions. All right. Now, for those of you who have a longer attention span, let me explain some stuff to you. So, you have 100 senators. They're divided into 3 classes for the purposes of elections. 1/3 of the Senate is up for election every 2 years. Senators do 6-year terms. The president, of course, does 4-year terms. And the House of Representatives, the entire House, is up for election every midterm. So in 2022, the entire House of Representatives will be up for election. But we can't change the balance in the House right now, but we can change the balance in the Senate, and it will be changed to some degree, I'm sure. But like I say, we can gain 23 additional seats if we don't lose any Democratic seats, and if all of the Republican seats that are up for grabs get flipped and turned to Democratic seats. And having 68 senators who are Democrats will not only make Congress veto-proof, but it will also make it possible to impeach the president if he commits any more impeachable offenses in his next 2 years in office, should he win. So let me see, what else is there to say here? Well, that's pretty much the gist of it. But we're looking at the presidency. Let me go back to that. Now, it is March 4th, 2020. Super Tuesday was yesterday. And now reality is beginning to come into focus, and we're realizing that there are only 3 possibilities left in terms of who could become president or remain president in 2021. So there's a possibility Trump will remain president, and in the Democratic field, we only have 2 people left, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. Of course, Bernie Sanders is a Democratic socialist. But putting politics aside for a minute, let me say this, that everybody should realize by now that Trump is totally fucking nuts. If they don't realize it, there's something wrong with them. I realized it in June 2015 when he began his presidential campaign, and I'm appalled that all Americans didn't realize it at that time. But that said, Joe Biden is actually losing his marbles. He's going senile. He's forgetting very basic things. He's having a hard time recalling even the simplest facts. He's becoming very incoherent. And so he's kind of unfit to serve. And if he does win, he's going to be medically removed very shortly thereafter, and his vice president is going to become the president. And then, of course, there's Bernie Sanders. He's a very sharp guy, but he's a democratic socialist, and McCarthyism is still alive and well in the country. Maybe not as much as it was 20 or 30 years ago, but still enough exists to keep Trump in office. So if Bernie were to outdo Biden, or if Biden were to kick the bucket before November 3rd, then Bernie would become the nominee. Of course, there is the possibility of a brokered convention if Bernie doesn't get a majority of the delegates. But that said, we're looking at the possibility that Joe Biden would be medically removed shortly after taking office. If he were to win, we're looking at the possibility that Bernie Sanders could outdo Joe Biden, and then the McCarthyists would vote for Trump, as terrible as he's been. But that said, neither of the two strongest possibilities for a president look good. I like Bernie Sanders, but McCarthyism and the fear associated with it is probably going to keep him from becoming president. I hate to say it, but that's just reality. But at any rate, let's prepare for the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario being that Trump wins his second term. And let's prepare for the second worst case scenario, which is that Joe Biden becomes president despite being senile. Now, if he chooses a good vice president, then that's not such a bad option. But we don't yet know who that's going to be. But in any instance, we need to think in terms of overpowering the presidency by having a super majority in the Senate and then getting a super majority in the House in November of 2022. They'd of course take office in January of 23. But that's where we need to put our effort, is in making sure that Congress, the Senate first, and then eventually the House, can overpower the president. And like I said, just having at least 60 Democratic senators would make Congress veto-proof, and having 67 or more Democratic senators would make it easier to impeach Trump. And there is a possibility of us getting 68 Democratic senators going into office on January 3rd, 2021. So I know I'm being a little repetitive here. I'm trying to school people a little bit in terms of politics and government and how it all works. But because of our worst case scenario and our second worst case scenario, a Trump and second term and a Biden presidency, we do need to look down ballot. And I should also say that I don't know how many governorships are up for election, or how many state level Senates or Houses of Representatives can be flipped. But it would be nice to see a blue wave all over the country at the federal and state level, and it would be nice to see where the president by himself would not be able to inflict any more damage, even if he does win a second term. And what's more is, if we get Democratic supermajorities in the various state legislatures of at least 38 states, then we can start talking about a constitutional amendment that would either take powers away from the U.S. president and or add powers to the vice presidency so as to get and keep this president and future presidents in check. So I'll stop there and let you soak that in, because my video's already 11 minutes long. All right, thank you.